I got one here for you. You might be paying too much for that
Hmm.
index fund. Now, again, at Falcon Wealth Advisors, we don't use third-party products. Cory, we basically created our own product. It's not a product because we're literally buying stocks, bonds, and options for our clients in-house. So it's not a packaged up in a retail form or wrapper. But I thought was interesting is State Street, they rolled out, and I'm not going to list the fund because, again, I'm not endorsing this, but it's pretty crazy that they've created a fund that only costs 0.02%, which is really cheap in there. And the article basically argued that whoever has the cheapest fund is seeing the more flows to their products, which kind of makes sense. There's a race to zero almost for this stuff. Now, just to define an index fund real quick, is an index fund is typically, not always, but typically an unmanaged, right, basket of securities. So you could think of an S&P 500 index fund. You would expect to get S&P 500 like returns, but nobody's really driving the boat. You're really just floating in that big blue ocean. And that's why we frankly don't like index funds for our clients, because nobody's driving. And if you have some stocks that are really crappy in that index fund, you could lose money, obviously, and you can always lose money when you're dealing with investments. But I also thought that it was interesting that they talked about financial advisors are really quick to adopt these low fee funds, which I disagree with. And the reason is the whole point of a low cost index fund is the low cost. If you slap on an advisor fee of 1% to something that's only charging you 0.02%, well, now you're locking in a negative 1.02% return against that index. And so if you, by definition, if you're paying an advisor fee to put you in an index fund, you're always going to underperform that index fund because the fees are more than what that index fund is invested in, if that makes sense. And so I think it's good for the do-it-yourselfer that perhaps is using index funds. That's nice, but I don't agree at all with advisors using index funds. I think that's, to be blunt, I think it's stupid for an advisor to put their clients in an index fund and charge 1%. I don't see the value you're adding to a client from an investment standpoint. Cory, what's your thought?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that you're locking in an underperformance, and I agree that I frankly think that if someone has hired an advisor, and part of what that advisor is investing money for the client, but they're using index funds or mutual funds, I don't think that advisor should charge the client based on the value of their portfolio, because they're not managing the assets. They're just putting it into the broad market.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I agree. And again, good for State Street, right? They're driving the costs down. But there's also such a thing called direct indexing, where some of these platforms, I don't know, I don't want to endorse any of them, but some places you may be actually able to buy fractional shares, and you could just literally go buy 500 stocks. Now it would be crazy to probably do that on your own and very hard. But then you don't need to use a product, right? So I think that's what's creating all this, is that there's just a lot of efficiency coming in the investment world, which is good. It's good for the retail client. And so I agree with it. I don't agree with advisor sold products, though, that are designed to be cheap. That's completely going against the makeup of the product.
Yeah, they're cheap until the advisor who sells it has to be paid, has to get
Right.
paid, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly.